Hey guys, Dan Marvash here. I'm here with Coach Darin Higashi. What's happening, Darin?
What's going on, man?
Today we're going to look at your chipping. When I'm looking at chipping, we're talking about ball contact, distance control, and then with advanced players, we get a little more into like trajectory stuff.
Okay.
Their ability to kind of control these things is really based on, how solid is their contact. What kind of issues do you have contact-wise on just these short shots? So you a guy that hits more fat, more thin?
I would say primarily it's going to be a thinner shot for me, especially looking at this type of lie and something that's going that distance. I don't really want to slow down because anytime you slow down in this wet kukuya, you're probably going to just dig. So I'll come in with a little bit more speed to try to get that.
Perfect.
And it'll leave me maybe sometimes not the cleanest contact, but if I'm coming through with speed, I'm going to be able to at least get it out there and play. And then what happens is that I'll be like too much speed, and then
stop.
I need to stop, which will stop the handle, club face goes forward, and then I thin it.
Yeah, so I think the fat shot is kind of the worst shot that we could hit, right? Guys will stick it in the ground an inch behind the golf ball, and you guys can't see this, but like we're off of probably the hardest ground to chip off of. It's kikuya grass mixture with a little bit of ryegrass, but it's wet. We're out in the morning, so it's definitely what I would call, most people are very fearful of this lie. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, it's definitely not something fun. It's when I'm chipping to 5 yards.
Yeah.
In the morning, I wouldn't mind putting this, but you got to still have the tools in your bag.
If you have really good technique and you're in a tough situation, then the easy stuff is easy, right? So it's about being able to have good enough technique where when you have these situations like many golfers have, they're able to get past them. And look, you can putt this all day long. I'm not going to tell you not to putt it because most people are going to benefit from doing it. Yeah. But when we evaluate someone, I want to see a few of the short shots. I want to see kind of like 5 yards, and then look a little more at 10 yards and 15 yards and just kind of see, even in a small sample, what we have.
There it is.
So a lot of times when we see that happening, we want to also see how the player sort of reacts to that. So I'll ask you before we get into it, is like, what do you do to make sure that does not happen?
So in order for me to try to not hit another fat one, I'm going to have a little bit more weight forward, handle feeling like it's a lot taller and a little bit more forward, and then stand up more through the shot. That's what usually happens, is that next one, if I'm practicing for sure, will probably be a little bit more thin.
So most players don't know half of that stuff, right? Like most players are dealt with whatever pattern they have. As a coach who knows a lot more about it than the average guy, right? You even know, okay, I'm going to stand the handle up a little. You said I'm going to put a little more weight on my left, right? You even did kind of the big one too, which is like, I'm going to feel steeper, right? Which is a topic that we can talk about all day. In this particular situation, people tend to think like, well, if I'm steeper, I'm going to stick the club more in the ground, right? And obviously for measuring, best players in the world, we know that that's just not the case, right? Especially in a situation where you're trying to get ball first, being steep is not the cause for this club sticking in the ground. Okay, oftentimes what we'll see from that shot where the club is sticking in the ground is the player is actually moving down, and so your fix for trying to make sure you don't go down is you actually feel like you stand up. The problem is that obviously there's two extremes, right? You could have one instance where you do go a little bit down, which I definitely don't recommend. There's the fat shot, right? Then the next thing, because you know what causes your fat shot, you'll start standing up. Well, if you start standing up sort of aggressively and early, there's potential for that club to actually be off of the ground, right? Yeah. So both instances can cause you some problems. The thing that sticks out to me a lot is really two things. One is you have too much tilt in your shoulders. So we like to see kind of really level with the shoulders, because what that does is it gets your centers, your chest and your pelvis more on top of the golf ball or even slightly in front.
Gotcha.
And you have a short shot, the thing working against you is time. You don't have time, right? And so things need to be sort of stacked in your favor in order for good outcomes to happen more often. We can also look at a little bit of your head movement, okay? And so what we understand about good chippers of the golf ball is they'll actually move a little down in the backstroke and a little forward in the backstroke. And I don't see it moving down very much. And we'll talk a little bit about that. The other piece that I always look at is, especially on a short shot, is how far the backswing is going and how much wrist set that we have, right? And in this case, even just going 5 yards, you've got quite a bit of backswing and quite a bit of wrist set. For players that kind of stick it in the ground, is they naturally, because the ball doesn't go as far, they naturally start creating a little bit more length to their swing. So I would say, as far as the one where you stick it in the ground behind the ball, you're pretty level on the backstroke with your head and your shoulders. You set maybe a little bit of angle, maybe a little bit too much. And then from there, you don't stand up, you're going to stick the club in the ground. If you stand up aggressively, remember you've got to set this angle. So if you set this angle, you're going to have to release this angle. I'd love to see a little bit of the setup. We'll level out your shoulders. We'll actually get you to feel like you use your left shoulder working down instead of your hands and your arms and your wrist as much in the stroke. And then from there, if we can get you to go down, you already come up, so you're not going to hit bladey and thin shots if you go a little more down in the backstroke. So I'm going to have you just go ahead and set up to the golf ball the way that you were, and then we're going to make the following adjustments. So definitely having the handle more high to the point where the heel feels like it's off the ground. Let's go ahead and have you raise that handle even more. Yep, and you see as he does that, he gets closer to the ball, and as he gets closer to the ball, he's going to lose the knee flex that he had. So that was kind of a natural thing. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this tilt. So I want you to feel like your left shoulder is lower than your right shoulder at setup, right there. Perfect. Good. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I just want you to feel like your left shoulder works down. There you go. Perfect. And so now I'm looking at it and seeing, okay, well, where's the ground contact? Does he still have a tendency to hit behind it? The thing to note is he's definitely getting plenty of turf, right?
Yeah.
But whereas before you get plenty of turf, there's sort of that fear that you'd stick it in the ground. Now it's like you're getting plenty of turf, but one, you're not trying, and two, you're not worried about hitting behind it anymore. No. And that all comes from the setup. I'll get in here again, and I'm just going to hold you to staying forward. There you go. Perfect. We just want to get the setup right and then have a nice feel for the player where he can see some immediate results. How do those contacts feel?
Oh, perfect.
Awesome. So he has his shoulders much flatter now. The thing I like about the left shoulder working down is it gives you a cue in your body, and it has the body sort of move the club. I think oftentimes a lot of players on short chips, because you don't need a lot of force in the system, they'll start using their hands in their wrist. So as you take the club back now, you'll see the head actually works even a little bit more forward. And what I like to see, especially if you're hitting some that are thin, is the head's going to work forward, but it's also, especially on longer shots, 10, 15, 20 yards, that head's going to actually start to work more down. That you can now kind of stand up through the shot as much as you want. So don't be afraid to feel that left shoulder really working down, and that head can feel like, even on a short shot, that it can work down and forward. One thing you guys will notice as he does these next couple of swings is just how much shorter that backswing is. Beautiful. The next thing we would do is we'd start our performance practice. So there's technique in what you're working on. In this case, we had a target, but in many cases, whether it's chipping, full swing, putting, whatever, working on just your setup pieces and your feel pieces. And because there's no target, you take that aspect out of play. You're able to just kind of really key in on your personal fundamentals. And then once you feel like those are good, then you want to do that, like I said, you want to do the performance side. So maybe it's doing a short one here, hitting to sort of the middle pin over here, and if there's a longer pin, going to a longer pin, right?
Yeah.
And then alternating each target so that it's a different shot each time, it's a different distance each time. Yeah, beautiful. Awesome. Those are great shots. Hopefully that helps you guys out, and make sure to come see Coach Darin and I and get your chipping dialed in. Yeah. So good job, D.